In this video, we will trace a Batman image, but you can use any image that you like for this activity. So the first thing we're going to do is click File, New. And you want to be clicked onto Character Animation, choose whatever resolution you're working with, and click Create. Then it's a good idea to click on the drop-down list for the view in the top right and change it to Fit in Window. Now you're going to want to have your image downloaded and saved. I've already got mine, so we're going to go to File, Import, Import to Stage, double click our image. Now it's imported into the middle of our stage. What we can do is resize this by clicking on the Transform tool. Click and hold down Shift on your keyboard and drag from one of the corners until the image fits your space or the stage. Now we're going to double click on the layer name down the bottom left corner here. I will call this image and press enter. Then I'll press the plus for a new layer. I'll double click on this and I'll call it drawing. Now I'm going to right click on the image layer and go to properties, and I'm going to change the opacity to 30 and press OK. And what that does is it fades out the image. It makes it 30% visible out of 100%. We're going to click back on the drawing layer and we're going to be able to see our drawing much easier. We're going to start with the line tool. We're going to click the line tool button and we're going to start clicking and dragging lines where there's a start and an end point for a curve. So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, 4, and so on. So I'm just going to stop here for now, and we're going to click the selection tool, and we're going to create curves by hovering over the line, clicking and dragging out a curve. So we'll do that here and here and here, maybe a little one here. This one's going to go in. This one's going to go out. This one goes in slightly. Now this one is an interesting one and we'll refine this, but for now I'm just going to curve it up as well as this one here. So we've made a lot of improvement, but we can do a lot more. So at this point I'm going to click on one of the lines and double click to highlight all of the lines. And then you get the properties panel with the object tab open, and we can change the stroke size to about 4. And then I've clicked off that. Now I'm going to right click on the selection tool and click subselection. And I'm going to click on one of the lines and it shows me all the lines highlighted in purple with square white boxes. If I click on one of the boxes, I can use the arrow keys on the keyboard or click and drag with the mouse to position the points where they should be if there was anything that was not quite right. I can also press Control and scroll on my keyboard and then press down on my mouse wheel and move through the canvas and click and get that more accurate. So that's just to zoom in to get a more accurate position on my lines. The other good thing about the sub-selection tool is these purple notches, which can help us refine lines in a more complex way by creating different amounts of curves at the start versus the end of a line or curve. And depending on how far out you drag the notch, it gives a different type of curve. So you will need to potentially fuss with those notches to get the curve that you're after. But they can be very useful in getting a complex curve right. Now, if you've got a situation like this where there is a curve over here, but you don't want a curve, you can go back and right click and choose the selection tool. You can click on that particular line. And now it's coming up with this whole piece as one. We can press delete and we can just go ahead and redraw our lines. For example, a line here for this curve. And then this is more like a straight line. So I'm going to draw a straight line there. Then I'm going to click the selection tool, drag a curve out, go back to the sub-selection tool, and then carry on as before. So when you drag the notch further out, you get a broader curve on that particular side. Now where that is much more useful is for a more complex curve like this one, where there is a drop in the curve and then there's a lift up in the curve on the other side. So to fix that, we can drag this notch down here to get that drop of the line, and then use this notch to get that rise in this point. And you can see you get a beautiful complex curve in line with how you like. Okay, so we've got our lines, and you can always go back to the selection tool, double click on the line to get all the lines connected, highlighted, and then increase the stroke size to your liking. So I think we might go to about 10 for this. Now I'm going to continue with the mouth. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do the line for the mouth. You can see that's pretty straightforward. Now we're going to do a line that separates the mouth color with the shaded mouth color. And we're going to add the curvature to that. And now we are ready to bucket fill for the mouth. So what we're going to want to do is get the color for the mouth. So I'm going to right click on the image layer and go to properties and tick for visible and click OK. Then we're going to use the ink dropper or the eyedropper, and we're going to click over the first color of the mouth that we want to capture. And that's saved here in the color swatch in that side on the left. Now we're going to go back to our drawing layer by clicking on the drawing layer. We're going to click on we're already clicked on the bucket, but click on the bucket if you don't have that selected, and click into the space for the mouth. And that's colored in the mouth. And if you want to check that, you can click on the hide button next to the image layer. and you can see that you've got your image with that first color filled in. We'll do the same thing for the darker skin tones. We'll click Image, we'll click the eyedropper, we'll click on the color, we'll click back to drawing layer, and using the bucket, we'll click to fill. We'll hide the image layer again, so now you can see what we've got. The reason you're seeing this shade over our drawing is because when you click on the drawing layer, it selects everything. So to deselect, you can click on the selection tool and click off, and now it's showing as it would be previewed properly. Now we're going to want to delete these lines here. So we're going to click on the line, press delete, and do that for this line here. Now we're going to want to draw the line for the mouth. So in that situation, we're going to right click the drawing layer, go to properties, change the opacity to 30. We want this to be less visible so that we can see the image underneath. We'll click back to show the image by clicking on the hide image button to show the image underneath. And we've still got the drawing layer selected, so we can click on the line and we can trace this line out here by clicking and dragging over it. And if you need to zoom in, that might be an option. We'll click on the selection tool to curve that out. And we'll use the sub-selection tool to make some adjustments to the points. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where it's doing this, that is because the line connected to the other lines, and we need to undo by doing Control Z to undo the line. And while we're zoomed in, we can do that again in a more accurate way. Now I've accidentally moved the whole thing, so I'm going to do a Control Z to undo. Go back to selection tool to drag out this curve here. I'll go to sub-selection tool to make any fine adjustments to that line. And that's looking good. From here, we can go back to the drawing layer, right click on that and go to properties, choose visible and OK. I'll just zoom out. Then we'll go back to image and properties and opacity and OK. And now we're going to continue with our tracing. So I'm going to do the outline. I'll continue that from here. Now, if we're seeing that this is still a faded effect, it's because I've drawn on the image layer. So we'll undo that. And we want to make sure that we're always drawing on the drawing layer. To ensure this, we can press the padlock next to image. And that way, if we do try to draw on that layer, we get this error here, that the layer is locked. So I'll go back to the drawing layer and I'll continue my lines. You can do this part relatively quickly and then make your adjustments later. So you see that's quite a quick process. Then using the selection tool, we get some accuracy. But for the more complicated curves, we would need to use the sub-selection tool. So this curve here, for example, I'm going to right click for sub-selection tool. I'll click on the line, I'll click on the corners, and I'll make some adjustments with these notches up here. And that's looking much better. Now I'll zoom in so I can continue with these inside lines. Now I'm going to color match for the blue. So we'll go back to Image, right click Properties, we'll tick Visible, click OK. We'll use the eyedropper, click on the blue, go to my drawing layer, I'll hide the image layer, and I'll fill the blue sections. So you can see that's starting to take shape now. We'll show the image layer, right click at Properties, choose Opacity and OK. We won't need to do any more color matching because the rest of the graphic is just black and white, and we can find that by clicking on the swatch here. And black is this top one here. So we click on that, and now we're ready to fill with black once we've traced around the eyes. So once again, we'll click on the drawing layer to do the tracing. And for the eyes, we will want to use a sub-selection tool to get a much nicer curve. Now, when you click on the corners, if you're not seeing the notches, it's because the lines haven't previously been curved. What you can do is you can press and hold Alt and click and drag to get those notches manually. And you get a really smooth point now. And then once you let go of Alt, you can drag with the mouse independently on each side. Do the same on this notch here. You can still go back to the selection tool and click and drag. However, you can get some wobbly lines as well. So if that happens, you can click on the line, press delete, and you can redraw. And I would always start making curves with the selection tool initially. And then some refinements can be done with the sub-selection tool. I find that these points here at the bottom need more refinement. So dragging them closer to that corner gets a sharper but still smooth point, which is what I'm after here for the bottom of the eye. Okay, now the fun part is to fill the black. So we're going to click on the black from the colors in the swatch, click on the bucket, and click in the center of the black space. And we've got to do the same over this side. And now we have our image. We can hide the image layer by clicking on the hide over this side here. And now what we're viewing is just our image. And you can see we've done a great job of doing a basic trace. And if you do need to increase any more lines, for example, the chin lines could be thicker, you can go back to selection. You can click that line here. We'll just right click and click selection tool. You can click this line. And then if you wanted to click just another line without highlighting everything, you can press and hold down Shift on your keyboard and click on the next line. So now we've got this corner, and then we can increase the stroke size by dragging for the stroke size. And if you find that you do need to blend it better, then you can click on the other lines. If you double click, you highlight all the lines, and then you can increase the stroke size that way. Now if we click on this line here, it tells me that's 20. If I double click, on the other lines, that's 22, so we can drop that to 20. And if they all match in size, then if I double click on one line, they're all going to highlight. So I think that helps just with the edge of the face. If I hide my drawing and show the original, then you can see it's similar. However, this one does have a little bit of a thinner line, but I think it actually looks stronger and better with a slightly thicker line for the chin. So there you have it. You can use this method for any image that you like. Thanks for watching.